Yeah, the Braves, they have about 6 weeks to figure out the MLB's newest rules. Funny enough, I saw folders in the clubhouse this morning with the rules in them, so players are definitely going over them. They're designed to make the game faster and with a better pace, plus more action like stolen bases, doubles, and triples.
It's definitely going to be an adjustment, but I'm glad that, we're going to have a month and a half to be able to figure it out before games start.
New rules for a new season.
It doesn't matter what I think, but it is a lot. We were talking about it this morning and yesterday after the workout. We're going to have a meeting with the pitching coaches and everybody in there right now.
I could speak pretty negatively on the rule changes, but I'll try not to. Things you can't control are not worth complaining about, so I can't control it. All I can do is adapt to it and try to use it in my favor.
Pitcher Spencer Strider trying to hold back his thoughts about the new way of doing things. That's because it affects him the most. Pitchers having to play with a pitch clock. Pitchers have 15 seconds to throw a pitch. That's when bases are empty. When there's a runner on base, they'll have 20. As for the hitters, they'll need to be in the batter's box with 8 seconds on the pitch clock. Minor leaguers hoping to make the Braves roster already know these rules. That's because they've been following them in the minors for years.
I think when runners on, it can cause an issue, but without a runner on, I don't think it's a big deal at all. I think people realize that it's way more time than you think, and so at the beginning of the year, games will be really quick, and then people will realize 17 or whatever, however many seconds is a long time. So I think it'll be okay. I think it'll be harder on the hitters than anybody.
I kind of went through it in AA, so I kind of know how that works and how it can speed up the game.
Now to a new rule some players will love. Base runners like Michael Harris II could benefit from the bases being bigger. They were 15 inches, now they're 18. It's meant to decrease injuries and increase stolen base attempts. Harris had a total of 21 stolen bases in the majors in 2022.
I could try to get a few more in there because bigger bases and they're limited to pickoffs. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think the pitchers really like it as much, but us base runners really like it.
And these are just a few of the new rules. They were tested in over 8,000 minor league games. And in 2021 through 2022, on average, games in the minors were shortened by about 25 minutes. That means that MLB games coming up this season could be about 2.5 hours long. I say that because right now, your average major league game is about 3 hours. Reporting from CoolToday Park, Emily Gagnon, Atlanta News First. Listen, we've been talking about it quite a bit. Who will take Dansby Swanson's spot in the clubhouse as the Braves' biggest leader? But what we haven't talked about is who will replace him on the field. It could be a guy who has never played an entire major league game at shortstop. The sheriff, Dansby Swanson, is out of Atlanta. Now in Chicago with the Cubs.
Everybody's going to police everybody. I don't think, Dansby's awesome, a great presence in the clubhouse, but, he's one of many in here.
But there's a new sheriff in town, Vaughn Grissom.
Swing, high fly ball, deep left field, Vaughn Grissom has home.
No pressure. I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. If I fall on my face, I get back up, and whatever happens. I'm just going to keep playing.
So, is this 22-year-old the Braves' next starting shortstop? He's competing for the job and learned a ton from Swanson in a short time.
On the field, off the field, just everything he does is kind of, it's what you want to model a professional after.
His true teacher?
He takes like 1,000 swings a day. I don't know if anyone knows, that's a lot of swings.
70-year-old Ron Washington, the Braves' third base coach, who was a shortstop when he was a player, has been helping. Wash is the fielding king. There's no one better. So Grissom spent a lot of the offseason with Washington, improving his skills and technique. They did the work in New Orleans, Washington's hometown.
He's good about keeping me on the details, on the small things. He can see when you take 1% off or, if you take something for granted, he just knows. So it's just, wow, he's in my head.
He and Wash have been good, and if Wash is given a thumbs up on something, then I truly believe it.
It feels really good about him. I mean, I know that. Wash is he's a positive guy. The kid went there, he did it all, but, still it's going to be about playing the game.
Washington has shown Grissom nothing but support, along with his closest friend on the team, NL Rookie of the Year, Michael Harris II. The young Bucks lean on each other while paving their paths in the majors.
I know how much work he puts in. He put in so much time with Wash this offseason, and Wash is just ready to go, so I believe it. And Vaughn is that type of guy to put in the work to, I guess, get whatever he wants.
Intense fielding drills. That's what those Ron Washington sessions are all about. If you were wondering, they are not easy. And listen, when Grissom first got to the league, he was red hot, but his offensive production slowed down towards the end of the season, so he was benched for quite a few games. His competition this spring training is a veteran, Orlando Arcia. Reporting live from CoolToday Park, Emily Gagnon, Atlanta News First. Hey, Tracy. Yeah, Braves chairman Terry McGurk, he was actually here earlier today attending practice, and he attended numerous games with Jimmy Carter and his wife, Rosalind. He told us that anytime he knew the former president would be at a game, he'd have to brush up on his knowledge. That's because Carter was such a big fan. He wanted to know everything there was to know about his team. So from the minors to the majors, from the players to their families, he wanted to know every detail about the Braves. McGurk said President Carter would always have a hot dog while his wife would have popcorn when they were at the games. And, you know, he called it Carter's relaxation place. Manager Brian Snicker got to see Carter around the ballpark. Snit actually received something pretty special from the former president that made him think, man, I made it.
I got a card from him. After we won the division one year, I think it was the year that I got Manager of the Year, I got a little congratulatory message and card from him, which I thought, my God, that's pretty cool.
You know, worst of first days in the early 90s. If you look at the pictures, President Carter is there for every one of those great games. And I've probably been, you know, I'm just trying to figure out, probably 50 to 75 games with he and Rosalind, and they loved baseball.
And listen, McGurk told us that every time President Carter attended a game, he'd have a huge entourage of Secret Service with him. That's because they all wanted to watch the Braves play, and he wanted to make sure he took care of the people who protected him, so he'd tell them to come on. Yeah, Alan, CoolToday Park actually became a disaster relief command center after Ian hit. I can tell you 620 workers from Florida Power and Light, they slept here for weeks on end until power was restored to the area. So the Braves, they set up a cafeteria and laundry services for them. That's outside the park. What about inside the park?
At the last minute, it did unfortunately hit the Fort Myers area, but turned left and came up the coast to us.
A baby's room completely exposed months after Ian, a Category 4 hurricane that destroyed parts of Florida. The devastation you see goes on for miles leading up to CoolToday Park.
I sat through the storm in my house with my family for 8.5 hours in the laundry room because it was the most secure room.
Small imperfections remain, but right now, to the naked eye, you can't even tell the ballpark suffered any damage. But Mike Dunn, the Braves VP of Florida Operations, is here to tell you the truth, a true tale of what happened back in September.
It took me over 4 hours to get here because the roads were blocked, they were flooded, there was just stuff. But once I got to the ballpark, you know, we started finding hanging things and debris that wasn't ours, and it just looked, unfortunately, like a war zone.
An 8-mile drive to the ballpark took Dunn 4 hours the day after the storm. The clubhouse and press box were flooded after their rubber roofs were punctured by flying debris. Fences, signs, and batting cages down or blown away.
If we don't have clay, we can't play.
Believe it or not, the infield clay just disappeared, sucked up by the storm.
It's not clay you can buy at a Home Depot or anything like that. It's a special recipe, special mix. So we had to not only secure that from a supply standpoint, and then quite frankly, with the devastation in the state, dump trucks and long-haul drivers were at a premium. So we had to mix it on the East Coast and transport it over. Until we knew that we would have this field done, we didn't know we'd have spring training.
And get this, the Braves spent $1 million on 150 tons of infield clay. These numbers you're looking at right now in front of the park, representing the club's 11 retired numbers. They went untouched. Dunn says that was Mother Nature's way of respecting Braves history